Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello. This is a book from Tor.com. It's coming out March 19th. I received this book from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. An entrancing historical fiction with a fantastical horror bent, The Woods All Black is at heart a queer love story with a tinge of Beauty and the Beast. Well, what is it about? Leslie Bruin is assigned to the backwoods township of Spar Creek by the Frontier Nursing Service, under its usual mandate: vaccinate the flock, birth babies, and weather the judgments of churchy locals who look at him and see a failed woman. Forged in the fires of the Western Front and reborn in the cafes of Paris, Leslie believes he can handle whatever is thrown at him, but Spar Creek holds a darkness beyond his nightmares. Something ugly festers within the local congregation, and its malice is focused on a young person they insist is an unruly tomboy who must be brought to heel. Violence is bubbling when Leslie arrives, ready to spill over, and he'll have to act fast if he intends to be of use. But the hills enfolding Spar Creek have a mind of their own, and the woods are haunted in ways Leslie does not understand. The Woods All Black is a story of passion, prejudice, and power, an Appalachian period piece that explores reproductive justice and bodily autonomy, the terrors of small-town religiosity, and the necessity of fighting tooth and claw to live as who you truly are. So, I'm so sweaty. As I was filming the first little part here, I see this, orange, kind of brown blob run by my window, and I was like, oh no. My dog escaped, he jumped over the fence again, and I just ran halfway around the block trying to find him. He ran into the woods, he disappeared, he jumped on a man, and then another man saved him for me. So, I'm very sweaty. Before I start the review, I want to explain that while Leslie, the main character, is female presenting, he identifies as male. The story is in third person, so whenever Leslie is talked about by others, he is referred to as female, such as people using she, her, or calling him miss. But in his point of view, he's male. So I will be referring to him by his preferred pronoun, just in case anyone's confused by that, though really it's not that confusing. Anyway, like the other two Lee Mandello stories I have read, this one doesn't really go where you expect. I adored Feed Them Silence, but this one is just a whole nother level. I also love historical fiction, particularly when it focuses on people who never really got a voice back in the day. In this case, we have a trans man, or a would-be trans man, given there's no surgery options back then, trying to live his life. In said life, he's a nurse who witnessed horrors at the front of World War I and is now tasked with traveling to small towns administering vaccines against stuff like polio, but also trying to impart some marital advice as well as midwifery if needed. This particular small town is lorded over by an uber-traditionalist pastor who wants Leslie out of the town. He also wants Stevie, another young woman who is questioning her sexuality and sex and gender, to settle down and get married in order to fix her of what he sees to be sin or whatever people like that think people living their lives are doing. The horror aspect of the book is pretty light in truth. It is not a gothic mystery or a creature feature or anything like that. The book stays very heavily in the historical fiction camp until it takes a wild turn into horror at the very end. Yet, it's more action with a fantastical bent than a horror. It's not scary, it's just a bit gory. There are parts that are a little bit creepy, but the creepiest is more on the part of the people than the actual thing. The thing that you should be scared of, kind of like the woods, is actually kind of like a safe space, in a way, to misuse that term, for Leslie and sometimes Stevie. So, if you love historical fiction, this book is chock full of details and is very well researched. Mandello doesn't shy away from the grimy, gross parts of life back then either. He also makes it clear that not everyone in the town believes the same way as the pastor. There are those who do agree with him somewhat, those who disagree but stay quiet, those who try to warn Leslie that he's getting into danger, and those who make themselves scarce to avoid persecution themselves. It's incredibly realistic and makes more of a point about acceptance and how societies function than an entirely evil town out to get the queers. It brings up ideas of power dynamics and mob mentality as well. The book also touches on what women had to go back through during the day when it comes to contraception and things like that as well. Now, where is that Beauty and the Beast aspect, you're asking? Well, those of you who are prone to a particular form of romance novels will be pleasantly surprised by something that happens in this novel. I can understand people finding that scene a bit off-putting, but I found it, well, I was super into it. I was like, oh my god, this is going exactly where I kind of wanted it to go. I also love the transformative, literally, nature of the horror aspect, and while there's one thing I really loved, but I can't talk about it because it's a huge spoiler, so I'll talk about that in a second. But to close the spoiler-free part of the review, I was entranced by this slow, ponderous, rather melancholy story. Mandello is becoming one of my favorite authors. It seems like he can't write anything that I don't like, so It's funny because his first book, Summer Suns, I think I gave it 4 stars because I found it was slow in parts and stuff, but it was a debut, and then Feed Them Silence just blew me away, and this one's just like same level. So I hope he just keeps, maybe it's novellas, maybe he's just really great for like shorter form. Anyway, I will read anything else that he puts out. And thank you again to NetGalley and to the publisher for the e-arc. I really, really appreciate it. I was so excited to get this. And onwards to one little spoiler. So I loved how the book did not fall into the barrier gaze trap. If you don't know, historically, queer characters in literature never survived. Either one of them or both of the lovers died. At the time, I believe the point was to create a tragedy to make the reader feel bad about a gay character, and thus creating sympathy for queer people in general, kind of like a forced empathy. I absolutely loved the ending of this book. I thought it was fantastic that they managed to both escape and they managed to kind of make a life together. So yeah, absolutely loved this book. Let me know in the comments if you have, obviously you've read it if you're listening to the spoiler. So let me know if you loved it as well. So